It's Memorial Day weekend, the biggest race weekend on the entire NASCAR calendar. Tens of thousands of fans are packed into Charlotte Motor Speedway. Engines are being tuned. The Coca-Cola 600 is just hours away. And then a golf cart becomes a weapon. A woman connected to one of NASCAR's most powerful and famous teams is arrested on a felony charge. A 77-year-old man is bleeding on the ground. And NASCAR hands down one of the most serious punishments it has ever given, with no end date attached. This story has nothing to do with what happened on the track. And somehow, it might be the biggest NASCAR story of the entire year. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you goes much deeper than a headline. Before I go any further, if you're watching this and you actually care about what happens inside NASCAR, not just on the track, but off it, the real stories, the ones that don't make the highlight reel, then this channel was built for. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is still developing. Court dates are coming. New information will drop. And when it does, NASCAR Report today will be the first place you hear it. Fully broken down, no fluff, no spin. Subscribed? Good. Let's get into it. Now, the first thing you need to understand is this is not a story about a driver losing their temper. It's not a story about a crew member doing something reckless on pit road. This isn't some hot-headed mechanic who pushed someone in the garage. The person at the center of this story is Anna Denning Howell, 35 years old, and her role at the team? Senior account manager. Let that sink in for a second. She works on the business side. She's in the office. She handles accounts. According to her LinkedIn profile, she has been with the organization since 2021. Based out of Charlotte, working behind the scenes, professionally, quietly for years. Nobody was talking about Anna Howell before May 23rd, 2025. She wasn't on anyone's radar. She wasn't a name NASCAR fans knew. And then everything changed. But here's what makes this story even bigger than just one person and one incident. And this is the part one really need you to pay attention. The team she works for is not just any team. I'll get to that in a moment. First, let me take you to the exact moment this all started. Saturday, May 23rd, 2025. The time is approximately 1:45 in the afternoon. Charlotte Motor Speedway. Coca-Cola 600 race weekend. The paddock is buzzing. Thousands of people moving around, doing their jobs, enjoying the atmosphere. And somewhere in that paddock, something goes terribly wrong. A 77-year-old man named Dennis Manchester is struck by a golf cart. Not accidentally. Not a moment of carelessness where someone didn't see him. According to the police report out of Concord, North Carolina, Howell allegedly drove that golf cart into Manchester intentional. Dennis Manchester is 77 years old. Think about that for a moment. 77 years old. And the impact was severe enough that he suffered what the court documents describe as a serious laceration. A deep wound. And here's something that I think speaks to how serious this was. When the court was determining bond, the judge specifically referenced an update on the victim's injuries as part of the decision-making process. The court was actively tracking how badly this was hurt. That is not routine. That tells you the injury was significant enough that it factored directly into the legal outcome. Howell was arrested the same day, Saturday, May 23rd. The charge filed against her is assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury. Now at this point, a lot of people's first reaction is, wait, a golf cart? A deadly weapon? I get it. I had the same reaction. But here's how North Carolina law works, and this is important to understand. The law doesn't care what the object is. A knife, a car, a bat, a golf cart. What matters is how it was used. If a vehicle is used with the intent to harm someone, it qualifies legally as a deadly weapon. Period. That's not an opinion. That's the statute. The court paperwork was direct. Quote, Howell unlawfully, willfully, and feloniously assaulted Dennis Manchester with a golf cart used as a deadly weapon causing serious injury. That language came straight from the Cabarrus County Court filing. Judge Matthew Black reviewed the case, found probable cause, and moved it forward. Bond was set at $125,000. Let me put that number in perspective. In North Carolina, for a lot of serious offenses, bond can be $10,000, $25,000. The court set this at $125,000. That is the court's way of signaling the severity of what it believes happened. Howell didn't pay the full amount herself. She worked with a bondsman, paid $12,500 as a fee, and was released from Cabarrus County Jail on May 26. Her attorney is Harold Cogell Jr. He has made no public statement. When the Associated Press reached out, he did not respond. And here is where the story starts to develop a second layer. Because up to this point, You might be thinking, okay, serious incident, serious charge. Terrible situation. But why is this national news? Hold on, I'm getting there. Now I need to stop here and be honest with you about something, because there's a massive piece of this story that nobody knows yet. We know the charge. We know the victim. We know the injury. We know the arrest. All of that is documented, confirmed, and on record. But what we do not know, what has not been publicly disclosed, is why. What happened in the moments before that golf cart moved toward Dennis Manchester? Was there an argument? Was there a prior conflict? Was there something said or done that led to that moment? Nobody knows. Or at least, nobody is talking. The court will eventually produce a fuller picture. But right now, the why is completely missing from it. And I think that matters enormously, because we are looking at a felony charge against a person whose full story has not been told yet. I'm not saying what happened was okay. The charge is real. The injury is real. The arrest is real. But the context behind it, whatever it is, hasn't come out yet. And until it does, this is still an unresolved story, not a closed one. That's the honest version of where things stand. And I think you deserve that honesty. Now, let's talk about the part that turned this from a local news story into something that traveled across the entire country. Anna Howell works for 2311 Racing. If you follow NASCAR at all, you know that name. But let me spell out exactly what that team represents, because the full weight of it matters here. 2311 Racing is co-owned by two people. The first is Denny Hamlin, one of the most experienced and respected drivers in the entire Cup Series. A veteran who has spent decades competing at the highest level. A man who is currently sitting second in the Cup Series points standings in 2025. The second co-owner is Michael Jordan. Yes, that Michael Jordan. 6-time NBA champion, 5-time MVP. The man most people consider the greatest basketball player who has ever lived. When he stepped into NASCAR as a team owner, it was not just a business move. It was a cultural moment. It changed how the sport was covered, who was paying attention, and what the stakes felt like for everything connected to that organization. When something happens inside 2311 Racing, it doesn't stay inside NASCAR media. It goes everywhere. Sports outlets, mainstream news, social media. Because the name Michael Jordan attached to anything automatically amplifies it. And now that name is attached to this. 2311 Racing has issued no public statement. Denny Hamlin has said nothing. Michael Jordan's camp has said nothing. The team, since the arrest and since the NASCAR suspension, has been completely silent. Three parties with enormous stakes in how this story is perceived, all choosing silence. That silence is a story in itself. 4 days after the arrest, on Wednesday, May 27th, NASCAR released its weekly official penalty report, and Anna Howell's name was on it. The punishment, indefinitely suspended. No end date. No timeline. No, suspended for 6 weeks pending review. Just indefinitely suspended. In NASCAR, this is not a standard disciplinary action. Fines and short suspensions happen regularly. An indefinite suspension is one of the most severe tools the sanctioning body has. It says we are removing you from this sport, and we're not telling you when or if that changes. NASCAR classified this under Section 4.4a of its rulebook, behavioral conduct. Not a competition violation. Not a technical infraction, a behavioral violation. The sport looked at what allegedly happened in that paddock and said, this does not belong here. For a non-competitive employee, someone who is not a driver, not a crew chief, not even directly involved in race operations, this level of consequence is extraordinary. It signals that NASCAR is treating this with the same gravity as the court. And notably, NASCAR has said nothing beyond that penalty report. No press conference, no formal statement. No elaboration, just the report and the silence. Now here's the part of this story that I think doesn't get talked about enough. Because while all of this was unfolding off the track, the arrest, the felony charge, the NASCAR suspension, the national headline, 2311 Racing was simultaneously having the greatest season in the history. And I don't use the word greatest loosely. The team fields 3 cars in the Cup Series. Tyler Reddick in the number 45. Bubba Wallace in the number 23, and Riley Herbst in the number 71. Tyler Reddick has been operating on a completely different level than anyone else in the sport this year. He won the first 3 races of the 2025 Cup Series season, back-to-back-to-back, right out of the gate. And he didn't stop there. He has now added 2 more wins on top of that, 5 total victories in the first 13 races of the season. To understand how remarkable that is, No other driver in the entire Cup Series has more than 2 wins this season. Not one. Reddick leads the points standings by a margin that is frankly historic for this stage of the year. His own teammate and co-owner Denny Hamlin, who sits second in the standings, is already 122 points behind him. That gap, at this stage of NASCAR season, is massive. At the very Coca-Cola 600 weekend where all of this happened, the same weekend as the golf cart incident, the same weekend as the arrest, Reddick finished. Herbst finished 21st. The team kept racing. The team kept performing. And that contrast is almost impossible to wrap your head around. One of the most successful and high-profile teams in NASCAR history right now is navigating the best on-track season it has ever had while simultaneously managing one of the most serious off-track incidents the sport has seen in years. Both of those things are true at the exact same time. Now, to truly understand the weight of what NASCAR did with the suspension, you have to put it in historical context. NASCAR has dealt with off-track incidents before. The sport has seen fights in the garage. It has seen public misconduct. It has seen personnel violations of various kinds. But indefinite suspensions, especially for non-competitive staff, are genuinely rare. The most notable indefinite suspensions in NASCAR history have typically involved drivers or crew members caught in serious rule violations, substance violations, or conduct that directly threatened the integrity of competition. For a business-side employee to receive this level of consequence for behavior that occurred away from the race itself tells you something important about how the organization views the perception of its own paddock. Charlotte Motor Speedway during Coca-Cola 600 weekend is not just any location. It is one of the most heavily attended and nationally watched race events. Whatever happened there happened in front of thousands of people, industry insiders, media, sponsors, fans. And NASCAR, in issuing an indefinite suspension, was drawing a clear public line. This is not who we are. This is not what happens here. Whether the punishment ultimately fits what is proven in court, that's a question the legal process will answer over time. But NASCAR's message was delivered loudly and without ambiguity. So where does this go from here? 2 separate tracks are running simultaneously. On the legal side, June 16th is the next scheduled court date for Anna Howell. That hearing will move the case forward, but it is almost certainly not the last time this appears in a courtroom. Felony charges of this nature in North Carolina can take months to fully resolve. Plea negotiations, pre-trial hearings, potential trial, all of it is still ahead. And each step of that process could bring new information about what actually happened on May 23rd. On the NASCAR side, the indefinite suspension remains in place with no defined path back. There is no publicly stated set of conditions that would allow Howell to return. NASCAR has not said, resolve the legal matter and we'll revisit. They've said nothing, which means the suspension just sits there, open-ended, and it will until NASCAR decides otherwise. The questions that still don't have answered. Will 23XI Racing speak publicly before June 16th? Will Michael Jordan or Denny Hamlin address this at any point? Will NASCAR update its position as the legal case develops? And the biggest one of all, what actually happened in those moments before that golf cart moved toward a 77-year-old man? The facts we have are real and serious. The picture is incomplete, and this story is far from over. This is what NASCAR in 2025 looks like. A team co-owned by one of the most iconic athletes on the planet. A driver setting records that haven't been seen in years. And somewhere in the paddock at Charlotte, an incident so serious that both the court system and the sanctioning body came down on it with maximum force. The Coca-Cola 600 weekend will be remembered for a lot of things, but the story that might stick the longest has nothing to do with what happened on that 1.5-mile oval. It happened in the paddock on a Saturday afternoon, and it started with a golf cart. The court date is June 16th. When something moves in this case, and it will, NASCAR Report Today will have the full breakdown. Every detail, every development, no fluff. If you're not subscribed yet, do it right now. Hit that button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the moment this story takes its next turn. If this breakdown gave you the full picture, leave a comment. Tell me what you think and drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel keep covering the stories that actually matter in NASCAR. I'll see you in the next one.